So welcome to this webinar on monitoring and control. This is about 8th now in the series of webinars we've been doing here at Certain Limited. So this is part of the project management series that we've been doing. So I'm Sophie, I'm the host for anyone who's not seen me before. And also with me is Mark Eaton, he's our training manager here at Certain Limited. So I'm just here to host, so I'm going to hop off in a minute and leave you in Mark's capable hands. But when Mark's finished running through with you, I'll join back again and I'll run through a question and answer session in which you guys can put any questions that you may have in the chat box that you should be able to see at the bottom of your screen. Anytime throughout the webinar that you have a question, feel free to just pop them in there and we can revisit those at the end. So I will leave you now with Mark and I will join you again shortly. Enjoy.
Thank you, Sophie. Well, welcome to our quick webinar on monitoring and control in a project environment. Okay. Hopefully, if you experience the projects, you might learn some different things, as I've gleaned them over the years from both my experience and my delegates' experience, but from their courses. We're going to talk about plans as a prerequisite to monitoring and controlling. And then we're going to talk about how to use different controls and different events and how we would use those in actually monitoring the progress in our project. So just to deal with the first instance then, guys, first, looking at the project manager, and a project manager is an individual, okay? One of the first problems that I ever came across as a project manager, and I'm going back now into the 90s, yes, I am that old and I have been involved in projects for quite a while now. Yeah, it was a project I had to share the project management role in, and I don't know if you've been put into that situation, but having multiple project managers trying to manage a project really leads to a massive risk of conflict. And who do the teams listen to? So the first things first, if you look at any of the frameworks around good practice in project management, there's always only one project manager, the individual responsible for the successful delivery of a project. Yeah, in other words, achieving the results of the project. Okay. And it's really important that we remember what the result, what our objectives are for our project and have those SMART objectives. And if we go to Prince 2, or if we go to APM, or if we go to even Agile PM, the Agile project management frameworks that we deliver courses on, then the role of the project manager is divided up into 4 different elements. Yeah, their job is to plan, to delegate, to monitor and control. Okay, and it's really important, guys. One of the dangers you find yourself in as a project manager sometimes is actually being made accountable. Okay, being made accountable not for the project but for the outcome of the project. And project managers shouldn't do that. Project managers should be responsible and accountable for the delivery of the project, not the delivery of the outcome. And that has led to a lot of failures in the past with projects where they've not been under control. Okay, that they've not been under control because the role of the project manager has been stretched to being accountable for the outcome rather than the delivery of the project. And it's important, and we'll talk later about the difference between project management and change management. So the prerequisite, and I really want to stress this, because over the recent years there's been a movement and a maturing of the way project managers work, and plans are really, really important. If you are ever in a position of governance in a project, you're a sponsor or assurance role, etc. Yeah, one thing you need to ensure that there is an appropriate plan for the project, and that's what I want to really emphasize. It's an appropriate plan for the project, and that will depend on the length and the complexity of your project. Long, complex projects will have a higher level of plan than a short, simple project. A short, simple project can plan in detail. Okay, but adding complexity to your plan only adds risk if you've got a large, long-term, risky project, something that's complex. But a plan is a prerequisite to monitoring and control. So our plan is our baseline, what we're going to compare our progress against. So it's important that we keep our plans up to date. Planning is not seen as an event at the beginning of the project, but is seen as an activity throughout the life of the project, because our circumstances, our context, our estimates, our objectives, they change, and they change regularly throughout the life of the project. So plans are really important, guys. I wanted to stress that at the beginning. They're a prerequisite to monitoring and controlling, but they've got to be done at a level that's appropriate for your project. Okay, so that's plans, the prerequisite, the baseline. So how do we monitor against the plan? Well, in the agile world, they've got a fantastic concept. It's called empiricism. And empiricism is navigating your way through the project based on where you currently are, rather than where you think you should be currently. And this is one of the ways that we've really matured the industry. As project managers, we've started to realize that a plan is important, but it's only part of the picture. And that we need to keep our plans in perspective. So the first pillar that we see here in empiricism is transparency. Your plans need to be transparent, even when they change. You need to be able to communicate that change readily and easily for the stakeholders, so that your stakeholders can quickly see through the transparent plan exactly where you are and where you're aiming to be and how you're going to get there. So it's the stakeholders that inspect your plans, and they can only do that if you're transparent. Okay, we don't hide plans away, and I'm even talking about, being, what's the word, complex in your planning, so that people don't understand them. You've got to make your plans easy to understand, simple to read, and therefore people can get information on. And don't forget, you also inspect your plan on a regular basis, and you're adapting that plan. So the old-fashioned approach, when I first started, of having a project plan, but only you being aware of where it is and what it does and how it works, has gone. We need to be transparent to our users. If we're going to demonstrate control, we need to be transparent in the way that we work. So let's talk about how we control. Based on our plan, how do we control? Well, there are two types of control mechanisms that we can use. We can use both time or event-driven controls. Now, a time-driven control is something that's driven by a frequency, by a time frame. So this is how we report in a lot of projects that we were working in. We have regular reports that are done at a regular frequency and in a regular format to our stakeholders. And these come under a variety of different names. Highlight report, newsletter, daily stand-up, daily scrum, weekly catch-up meeting. And you'll notice that these tend to have some sort of regularity to them. And the time-driven control is a reporting tool. And it's used to ensure that your stakeholders are aware of the context of the project right now. Okay? So for example, I'm not a fan of the weekly catch-up, because there's a week where things can happen and your stakeholders aren't aware of it. Whereas a daily stand-up, there's a lot less can happen over a day. Or a newsletter and a highlight report that's kept up to date, that people can access, or a dashboard that people can access on a regular basis. They are time-driven controls, and their job is to communicate, to make sure that stakeholders are aware of where we are. Okay? Event-driven controls are driven by events during your project. And this is run by something that's referred to on the slide there as management by exception, where you delegate a position or a situation or a piece of work to your project team or an element of your project team, yeah, and you delegate the responsibility for that to them, and you give them a framework to work within, a time frame, a budget, a set of resources. Yeah. And basically, as long as the team stay within that framework, and perhaps you might add some contingency to that framework, as long as they stay within that framework, yeah, it will not trigger an event. It's basically you're kept up to date via a time-driven control. But the moment they realize that they're going to be outside of those objectives or outside of those frameworks, that's an event. And that's the event that will trigger some sort of control, whether an issue has been raised, or a risk has been identified, or a request for change comes in. They are events that will trigger some sort of action to allow you to control your project situation. So let's take change control. Now, once again, up-to-date project management methods, yeah, accept that change is inevitable, that something is going to happen within the context of your project that changes one of the objectives of your project. It might be a change of scope, it might be a change of technical elements, okay? But something's going to change, and you're going to have to deal with that because you want the advantage that that change will bring. So we have to build into the way that we deliver our project a process that will first capture that change, then assess that change and does it bring advantage into our organization, and then of course enact that change and make changes to the plans to actually introduce that change into our particular project. So a combination of both time and event-driven controls is very important in your project. This is why in good practice projects like frameworks like Prince2 and APM, they have a planning phase within the life cycle of the project, where you decide on which time and event-driven controls you're going to put in place. Now, one of the most common event-driven controls would be a gateway or a review. Now, these are not time-driven, guys. I know that you will plan a particular time frame for a gateway or a review, but it's actually triggered by an event where, if you look at this, the slide here, that the team have actually completed the outputs that make up, that would trigger that gateway. So they will have created them, they will have tested them, and they will have passed their test, and they will have got them signed off or approved. Yeah. And it's important at that point, if you're going to have a gateway or a review, that you regard it as what's known as a go, no go point. You're going to need a decision by the project sponsor on whether the project is worth carrying on with. So you plan your gateways and your reviews in, but always remember that you're monitoring and controlling when that actual gateway occurs, whether it's to plan, or sometimes you might do it earlier and sometimes you might do it later. Now, it's important that the project sponsor attends that gateway, so does the project manager, so does the project team members and the key stakeholders, because a decision is going to be made at the review on whether we continue with the project or whether we stop, whether we've reached the end or whether there's more to do. And of course, that is driven by your business case. And your business case will indicate that there's still value to be added to the situation so that you continue with your project. So during the review, we get approval of the completed products by the stakeholders. We get approval of the ongoing plan by the sponsor. And the sponsor will make the decision on whether to continue or actually stop the project. And only the sponsor should make that decision. Once again, I've found myself as a project manager at times, having to make that decision because the sponsor has decided that they won't, or they won't attend a review. Attached to a review should always be a retrospective. Now, retrospectives, guys, are where the team sits down. So not the sponsor, not the key stakeholders, the team and the project manager will sit down and think about how they performed up to the gateway or up to the review. And it's important, guys, that you always do a retrospective after the review. Once you've made the decision on whether you're going to stop or whether you're going to carry on, because improvements can always be found. Even when something goes really well, it's probably not perfect. So retrospectives should be built in. It's a way of controlling the way the team performs. And the idea is to identify actions that will improve the chance of my project being successful. So retrospectives are where we sit down with the team and we look at the performance of the team and how we can improve that. And of course, any actions from the retrospective get stuck into the plan. Yeah. So that the plan reflects how we're going to actually move forward and introduce the chance of more success. So those were just a couple of little things that, tips from me that how we can monitor and control our projects in line with Prince 2, Agile PM, MSP, etc., etc. Now, if anybody has any questions, if you want to put them into the time box tomorrow, and I'm sure Sophie's going to reappear like magic any moment now. Excellent.
Okay, so if anyone does have any questions, like Mark said, feel free to just pop them in the chat box. But what we do have is a couple of frequently asked questions that we get all the time about this kind of thing. So we have those kind of ready to go just to give you guys a chance to think of any questions that you might have had. So like I say, if you do think of any while we just run through this quick few frequently asked questions, then feel free to add them in. So the first one that we get is, what is the difference between project management and change management? So, Mark?
Okay, project management and change management should be seen as two distinctly different but complementary elements of change within an organizational setting. So project management, a project, remember, is a standalone organization to deliver capability, to deliver a product, an output, something that the organization can utilize to add value to the organization. Change management is something that the organization does to change the way that they're working. And it's really important that we see these as two complementary but distinct areas of change within an organization, because a lot of people have them, project managers don't do change. Project managers are trained, they're experienced to deliver products on time and to budget. They plan, monitor and control, delegate. Yeah. Change managers need to know the business. All right. Change managers need to know the culture, the politics, the people, the processes, how the business works, so that they can change it properly. Okay. Just to give you what I think is an amusing example from my past, I once asked a local government, a local council, to whether I could put a new finance system in March. Because at that point in time, finance wasn't my thing. I know now that March is a very busy time for finance departments. So putting a new system in March was a ridiculous situation. But,
you live
I was
and
young
learn.
and enthusiastic. You do.
Fab. So the next one we've got is, how does a business case relate to the plan?
Once again, it's one of those things where they complement each other. Okay, so as a business case is used to justify the investment. So the business case sets out initially some important things that will affect the plan. So, for example, how much the sponsor's willing to spend, whether there's a hard deadline or not, what the key risks to the project are. And that informs the plan. But then, of course, once you've completed the plan then informs the business case and confirms that you can actually deliver what you're supposed to deliver based on the information within the business case. So the two are complementary. They should be seen as living documents or living pieces of information, kept up to date all the way through the project, not just created, put into a drawer and forgotten about.
Great. The third one is, at what point should the project manager shut down the project?
Never. A project manager shouldn't shut down a project. It's the sponsor's job to shut down the project. Yeah, and this is once again one of the dangers that sometimes project managers you find yourself in. Your experience, I'm sure, is a bit like mine, that you, at least for one of your projects, you've experienced a sponsor that won't engage. Yeah, that says, oh, I'll leave it all up to you. That's a very dangerous thing to do, because then you're accountable for the outcome. Yeah. When I say project managers should be held accountable for the delivery of the project, but not for the delivery of the change, the outcome. So it's really important the sponsor does that.
What would you advise then if you had a sponsor that wouldn't engage, and no matter kind of what you tried as the project manager to get them engaged, you just couldn't get them on board? What would you do in that situation?
Yeah, my favourite quote out of all the manuals that we deliver courses on, from the Agile Project Management course, the quote is, tough love. Don't make the decision. Yeah, and as a project manager, as an employee, that's very difficult. Yeah, because but it's actually making sure that the values of the organisation and the priorities of the organisation are being put first by making sure the sponsor makes the decision. And as a project manager, I won't close a project down until the sponsor says so. I will email them, I will ring them, I'll go knock on their door, I'll give them a coffee, and I'll keep advising them, and but until they say close it down, Mark,
Fair enough.
Close it down.
So the last frequently asked question that we've got is, what can the project manager flex within the plan?
Traditionally, we always used to look at fixing and flexing three things: time, cost, and quality. Okay. There's actually three more things that you can flex. Okay, risk. Yeah, you can choose to take more risk than you've decided to at the start, or vice versa, less. Okay, you can flex scope. Yeah, this is a big thing in the agile world. If you run your projects in an agile way, they fix time and cost, but flex scope. So you can choose what you're going to deliver, what's going to be the most value to you. And then the final one is benefits. Benefits, or as I call them, key performance indicators, or targets on key performance indicators. You can flex those, so you can reduce the benefits down, or you can increase the benefits depending on the situation that you find yourself in the project. So 6 things, and you can combine fixing some and flexing them. So time, cost, quality, scope, benefit, and risk. And you choose which so as an agile practitioner, I fix time and cost and quality, but I flex scope. Okay. I tend to fix benefits as well.
Great. So that's it for the frequently asked questions. So I hope those have been helpful for you guys. That's it kind of for the information side, but we just want to say thank you to everyone who's participated today. And as a thank you, we have a 20% off code just on the screen now, PM series, and that will give you 20% discount on our courses. We actually have some exciting new things coming in the new year. So I'm going to hand back over to Mark, who will give you a little bit of info about that. Oh, sorry, just to mention, just nip back that one for me, Matt. We've got a workshop this Thursday coming, so in 2 days' time, on stakeholder engagement that you guys can feel free to partake in. The next webinar, we have been doing these on Tuesdays, but next week it's going to be on a Thursday. So the next webinar is on the 17th, and that will be on project management certification pathways. So it would be great if we could see you guys there. But like I say, new stuff coming in the new year. Back to you, Mark, to talk about those.
Yeah, this is our current scope of what we deliver. Certain Limited has been started in August this year, and we were pleased to work with the APMG to be able to provide these particular courses. I'm pleased to announce that as of Friday, we can now deliver better business cases. We are accredited to deliver the Better Business Cases course as of Friday. And just for you guys, just hot off the press, we've got some late availability offers at the moment. We've got an Agile project management course running next week. It's a 5-day course, includes both foundation and practitioner. And as a late availability offer, I can say today that for £775, you can book yourself on that course. That includes the manual, that includes both exams as well, okay, and it includes the entire course. So that's £775 for the Agile PM 5-day course that starts on Monday, if you can free yourself off as a late availability offer. The following Monday, we've got a Scrum Master course for £365. That's including the exam. That's the Agile Business Consortium Scrum Master. Okay. Then, guys, these are the courses that will be available to deliver next year. So as of the middle of January, I believe, is what we're talking about. We'll be able to offer Prince 2, Prince 2 Agile, the new hot off the press version of MSP, version 5, and the ITIL version 4. So hopefully, get in touch and we'll be able to book you on one of those courses.
Fabulous.
So thank you, guys. Thank you for your time and your attention. Yeah, as usual, if you've got any information, go to our website and there's a contact button on there for you to be able to contact us and ask us any questions. But for today, Sophie, thank you for hosting us. And I'll
it's worth just mentioning
after this lockdown thing.
Anyone who missed the beginning or any of our other webinars, they are or will be this one on our YouTube channel over the next few days, and as are all of our other webinars, so you can catch up on those on there. So thank you, everyone.